The call came on a Tuesday morning in early November. I was sitting on my back porch in Asheville, watching fog lift off the Blue Ridge, drinking the same black coffee I'd been drinking every morning for 40 years. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. Mr. Brennan? This is Kathleen Marsh. I'm an attorney with Paxton and Marsh in Charlotte. I was your brother's lawyer. My brother Bobby had been dead for 73 days. Pancreatic cancer. He was 69, 4 years older than me, and he went fast. 8 weeks from diagnosis to funeral. We'd been inseparable our whole lives. Grew up in the same bedroom, in a narrow row house in Pittsburgh. Joined the Army together. Started a construction company together when we got out. Built it into one of the biggest commercial firms in the Carolinas before we sold it and retired. He was my best man. I was his. When my first wife, Diane, died of breast cancer 6 years ago, Bobby was the one who drove down from Charlotte every weekend for a year, just to sit with me. He never said much. He didn't need to. He'd just show up, cook something, watch the game, make sure I ate. That was Bobby. What about my brother? I said. He left something in my care with very specific instructions. A sealed package I was to hold for exactly 73 days after his passing, then deliver to you personally. He was very precise about the number. Mrs. Marsh paused. Mr. Brennan, he also left a letter for me. In it, he said you'd be confused and maybe angry, but that you'd understand once you opened the package. Can you come to my office this week? I drove to Charlotte the next morning, 3 hours on I-40, with nothing but my thoughts. Bobby had been sharp right up until the last 10 days when the morphine took over. Even then, he'd grab my hand and look at me with those steel gray eyes like he was trying to tell me something. I thought it was just a dying man holding on. Now I wasn't sure. Kathleen Marsh was younger than I expected. Maybe 50. No nonsense. Wire-rimmed glasses. She pulled a padded envelope from a locked drawer. My name was written across it in Bobby's blocky handwriting. The same handwriting from 1,000 job site notes, birthday cards, napkin sketches of buildings we'd never build. He recorded the main item about 5 weeks before he passed, she said. He was insistent that I wait the full 73 days. He told me the timing mattered for reasons you'd understand. I took the envelope and drove to a parking garage 3 blocks away. Sat in my truck with the engine off. Inside was a USB drive and a short handwritten note. Jimmy, play this alone. Lock the door. Don't tell Andrea. Don't tell anyone. Just watch it all the way through. Then call Kathleen. I love you, brother. B. Jimmy. Nobody called me that anymore except Bobby. My legal name is James, but I'd gone by Jim my whole adult life. Only Bobby still used the childhood version. I didn't go home. I drove to a hotel off I-85, checked in with cash, sat on the bed, and plugged the USB into my laptop. Bobby's face filled the screen. He was sitting in his study, the one with the fly fishing photos and the old Army unit flag on the wall. He looked terrible, 60 pounds lighter than the man who danced at my wedding 3 years earlier, but his eyes were locked on the camera like laser sights. Jimmy, he said, if you're watching this, I lost the fight. And I'm sorry I'm not there to have this conversation face to face. But I need you to listen to me like you've never listened before. Not like when I told you to sell the company before the market turned. Not like when I told you that Diane's oncologist was wrong and we needed a second opinion. This is bigger than all of that. He took a long breath. I could hear the oxygen concentrator humming in the background. Your wife, Andrea, is going to kill you. I almost closed the laptop. My hand actually moved toward the screen. Andrea, my wife of 2.5 years. The woman who'd pulled me out of the darkest period of my life after Diane died. I'd met her at a fundraiser for veterans housing in Asheville. She was 44, a former real estate agent from Savannah, divorced, raising a 21-year-old son named Tyler on her own. She was warm, attentive, beautiful in a quiet way. She laughed at my bad jokes. She remembered the names of my grandchildren. She made the house feel like a home again instead of a museum dedicated to grief. We married 14 months after we met. Bobby had flown down for the wedding. He'd been polite, charming even. But on the porch that night, after the guests left, he'd pulled me aside. "You sure about this, Jimmy? It's fast." I told him I was sure. Told him I was tired of eating dinner alone. He'd nodded, hugged me, and never brought it up again. Now his face was on my screen, gaunt and gray, telling me she was going to murder me. "I know what you're thinking," Bobby continued. "You're thinking I was on drugs, seeing things, paranoid from the pain. I wish to God that were true, but I spent 6 weeks. 6 weeks I should have spent with Linda and the grandkids, having this investigated. Do you remember Ray Alcott? Ray Alcott, Bobby's neighbor in Charlotte. Retired FBI. We'd had him over for barbecues a dozen times. Ray's been looking into Andrea since March. Since before I got sick, actually. Something she said at Thanksgiving last year didn't sit right with me. She made a comment about your pension and your accounts. It was small, Jim. The kind of thing most people wouldn't notice. But I noticed. And I asked Ray to do some digging as a favor. Bobby leaned forward. His hand was trembling, but his voice was iron. "Andrea was married twice before you. She told you the first husband left her for someone else. That's a lie. Her first husband, Gerald Sutton, died in 2014 Inches, Brunswick, Georgia. He was 58. Fell in the shower. Hit his head. Ruled accidental. He'd changed his life insurance beneficiary to Andrea 4 months before he died. $500,000. I felt the room tilt. Husband number 2 was a man named Douglas Pryor from Hilton Head. Married in 2017. Dead by 2019. Heart attack at 51. The insurance payout was $750,000. There was a small investigation because a neighbor reported seeing Andrea arguing with Douglas the week before he died, but nothing came of it. She moved to Savannah, laid low for 2 years, then showed up at that fundraiser where she met you." Bobby coughed. When he recovered, his eyes were red. "Open the folder marked Evidence. Ray has everything. Bank records, insurance documents, interviews, phone recordings. Tyler's been in on it from the beginning, Jimmy. He's not the quiet kid you think he is. He's her partner. They've done this together every time." I paused the video, walked to the bathroom, splashed water on my face, stared at the mirror. I was 65 years old, a retired business owner, a grandfather, a veteran. I'd built bridges and office towers. I'd survived 2 tours. I'd buried a wife I loved. And now I was standing in a highway hotel bathroom, learning that the woman sleeping next to me every night might be planning to put me in the ground. I went back, pressed play. The folder has audio recordings. Tyler is careless. He talks to his girlfriend Megan on speakerphone in his car. Ray's associate managed to pick up several conversations. In one of them, Tyler tells Megan they'll be done with the old man by spring. His words, Jimmy. The old man. In another recording, Andrea calls Tyler from your house while you're at the VA for your checkup. She tells him the supplements are working. She says, and I'm quoting Ray's transcript here, his blood pressure has been all over the place. The doctor is adjusting his real medication, which means the dosage I'm giving him is doing exactly what it needs to do. A few more months and it'll look completely natural. My blood ran cold. The supplements. Andrea had started buying me special herbal capsules about 8 months ago. Said she'd read about them in a wellness magazine. Good for heart health, circulation, men over 60. She mixed them into the pill organizer with my regular prescriptions. I took them every morning without thinking. Bobby's voice continued. Ray believes she's using something that interacts with your blood pressure medication, something that destabilizes your heart rhythm over time. He's not a chemist, but he's talked to a pharmacologist who says it's absolutely possible. You need to get those supplements tested immediately. But Jim, don't let her know. Don't change a thing. If she suspects you're onto her, they'll accelerate the plan or disappear. And if they disappear, they'll do this to someone else. He wiped his face with a shaking hand. There's more. Andrea's been siphoning money from your joint account. Small transfers, 2,000 or 3,000 at a time, into an account in Tyler's name, at a bank in Jacksonville. Over 2 years, it adds up to just under $170,000. And 3 months ago, Tyler took out a life insurance policy on you through an agent in Columbia, South Carolina, forged your signature. $1.8 million. Ray has copies of the documents. Bobby paused, and for the first time his composure cracked. His chin trembled. I'm sorry, Jimmy. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. I saw the signs early on, the way she pushed you to consolidate your accounts, the way she volunteered to manage the household finances, the way she always knew exactly where your money was. But you were happy. For the first time since Diane, you were happy. And I thought maybe I was just being an overprotective big brother. I should have trusted my gut. I should have pushed harder. A tear ran down his hollow cheek. Take everything to Kathleen. She'll connect you with law enforcement. Ray has a contact at the Buncombe County DA's office. But be smart, little brother. Be patient. These people are dangerous. Gerald Sutton and Douglas Pryor are dead because Andrea is good at this. She's patient, and she's cold, and she has no conscience. Don't underestimate her. The video ended with Bobby looking directly into the camera for a long, silent moment, like he was memorizing my face through the lens. Then he reached forward and the screen went black. I sat in that hotel room for 2 hours without moving. Then, I opened the evidence folder. Ray Alcott had been meticulous. FBI training doesn't leave you. There were audio files, time-stamped and labeled. Tyler telling his girlfriend about the house in Asheville, how it was worth $2.4 million, how they'd sell it within months of my death. Andrea on the phone with Tyler discussing my medication schedule, my doctor's appointments, my sleep patterns. A recording of Andrea meeting with a man at a coffee shop in Greenville. Ray's notes identified him as Victor Harlan, 46, a parolee with 2 armed robbery convictions and a history of violence. Ray's associate had managed to get close enough to record fragments of their conversation. Enough to hear Andrea say the words, if the supplements don't work fast enough, we may need a faster solution. There were bank statements. $168,000 moved in increments so small my accountant never flagged them. The forged insurance policy. Tyler's clumsy signature attempt, close enough to fool a lazy agent but obviously wrong to anyone who knew my handwriting. And there were the obituaries. Gerald Sutton, beloved husband, died suddenly at his home in Brunswick, Georgia. Douglas Pryor, loving father, passed unexpectedly at his residence in Hilton Head. 2 men, 2 accidents, 2 payouts. I called Kathleen Marsh. You watched it, she said. All of it. Ray Alcott is expecting your call. Bobby arranged everything. He said you'd need a plan, not just evidence. Bobby always did think 3 moves ahead. Ray drove down to Asheville the next day. He was 72, but built like a man who still ran 5 miles every morning. We sat in my truck in a grocery store parking lot because I couldn't risk Andrea or Tyler seeing him at the house. First things first, Ray said. Those supplements. I need them. Every bottle she's given you. I have a contact at the state crime lab in Raleigh who owes me a very large favor. I told him I'd swap the capsules that night. Take photos, bag the originals, replace them with similar-looking vitamins from the drugstore. Second, he said, we need to catch Harlan. The recordings I have are suggestive but not conclusive. If we're going to nail all 3 of them, we need Harlan on tape agreeing to harm you. Or better, we need him in your house attempting it. That's bait, I said. I'm the bait. Ray looked at me a long time. Bobby told me you'd say that. He also told me to remind you that you promised Diane you'd see your grandkids graduate. I know what I promised. But Bobby spent his last weeks on Earth protecting me. I'm not going to waste that by playing it safe. Over the next 2 weeks, I lived a double life. I kissed Andrea good morning. Took the fake supplements with my orange juice, even grimacing at the taste the way I always did. Complained to her about feeling lightheaded. Watched her face for the flicker of satisfaction I now knew to look for. And I saw it. A micro-expression, gone in half a second. the faintest tightening around her eyes that wasn't concern. It was anticipation. Ray's crime lab contact confirmed the capsules contained a compound that, combined with my blood pressure medication, would cause progressive cardiac arrhythmia. Taken over months, it would produce symptoms indistinguishable from natural heart failure in a 65-year-old man. It was slow, patient, invisible, just like Andrea. Meanwhile, Ray and I built the case. He brought in a former colleague, Special Agent Dana Torres, now retired and working private investigations in Raleigh. Dana was sharp, methodical. She mapped Andrea's financial trail across 4 states. She found 2 more bank accounts we didn't know about. One in Andrea's maiden name in Florida, another under a shell company Tyler had registered in Delaware. Total stolen funds, $231,000. Dana also dug deeper into the deaths of Gerald Sutton and Douglas Pryor. She tracked down Gerald's adult daughter, Patricia, who told her that Andrea had insisted Gerald take daily supplements she bought from a natural health store. Patricia had always suspected something but could never prove it. She broke down crying on the phone when Dana told her what we'd found. 3 weeks after I watched Bobby's video, Ray called with news. Harlan is getting impatient. He contacted Tyler yesterday. Said he wants the second half of his payment, or he's walking. Tyler told him to wait until Thanksgiving week. Said you'd be, and I quote, too sick to put up a fight by then. Thanksgiving was 9 days away. We contacted Detective Paul Langford with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. Ray had known him for years, trusted him completely. Langford reviewed the evidence, consulted with the DA, and agreed to set up an operation. The plan was straightforward. I would tell Andrea I was driving to Knoxville the Saturday before Thanksgiving to spend the holiday weekend with my daughter Sarah and her family. Instead, I'd check into a motel in Black Mountain, 20 minutes from the house. Ray's team would wire the house with cameras and audio. If Harlan showed up while I was gone, we'd have him on video. If Andrea or Tyler said anything incriminating, we'd have that too. Langford would position officers nearby, ready to move. I told Andrea on Monday. Her reaction was textbook. Oh, that's wonderful, Jim. You should spend time with Sarah and the grandkids. You've been looking so tired lately. Maybe the mountain air in Knoxville will do you good. Don't rush back. Stay through Sunday if you want. She practically pushed me out the door. Tyler stopped by Tuesday evening. Unannounced, which was unusual. He was always careful about appearances, the dutiful stepson checking on his aging stepfather. He asked about my health, whether the doctor had adjusted my medication. He looked at his mother while he asked. She gave him the smallest nod. They thought I couldn't see it, but once you know what to look for, you can't unsee it. I left Saturday morning at 7, hugged Andrea at the door. She held me tight, told me she loved me. I looked at this woman I'd shared my bed and my home and my grief with for nearly 3 years, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, not yet. Something colder. The clear, quiet focus I hadn't felt since the army. The feeling you get when the mission is real, and the stakes are everything. I drove east on I-40, until I was sure I wasn't being followed, then doubled back to the motel in Black Mountain. Ray was already there with Dana, and a tech named Hector who'd installed the surveillance equipment while Andrea was at her yoga class Friday afternoon. 6 cameras, 4 microphones, everything streaming to a laptop in Ray's motel room. We watched the feed. Andrea was on the phone within an hour of my departure. He's gone, she said. Just left. He won't be back until Sunday night, at the earliest. We could hear Tyler's voice on the other end. Harlan wants to come tonight. No, tell him tomorrow night. I need to prepare. I need to make sure the neighbors see me leave for dinner. She paused. And Tyler, remind him. It has to look like a break-in. He comes in through the basement window, takes some things, and if Jim happens to be home early, which he won't be, Harlan panics. That's the story. A burglar who panicked. Mom, Tyler said. He's not going to be home. You just said he's in Knoxville. Andrea's voice went flat and hard, a voice I'd never heard in 3 years. We're not paying Harlan $40,000 for a hypothetical, Tyler. We're paying him because if the supplements don't finish the job by February, he's the backup. Tomorrow night is a dry run. He comes in, walks the house, finds the entry points, memorizes the layout. When the real night comes, and it will come, he'll move like he's been there before. Because he will have been. Ray looked at me. His jaw was tight. We have enough right now to arrest her for conspiracy. But if we wait for Harlan tomorrow night, we get all three at once. We wait, I said. Sunday evening, 7 o'clock. The cameras showed Andrea leaving the house in her blue dress. Her book club met every other Sunday at a restaurant in Biltmore Village. She always stayed until 9:30. Clockwork. At 7:40, a dark pickup pulled into the gravel turnout behind my property. Victor Harlan stepped out. He was big, over 6 feet, heavy through the shoulders. He wore dark clothes and a baseball cap pulled low. He crossed through the tree line and approached the house from the back, exactly as Andrea had described. Basement window. Langford's team was positioned at 2 houses on either side, both belonging to neighbors who'd been quietly informed that afternoon. 4 officers in plainclothes. Dana was in the surveillance van with Hector. Ray was with me at the motel, watching every camera. Harlan popped the basement window with a flathead screwdriver. Pulled himself through. He moved through the basement slowly, using a small flashlight. He came up the interior stairs, opened the door into the kitchen, stood there in the dark, looking around. Then he walked through my home the way a general walks a battlefield. Living room, dining room, my study. He opened drawers, checked windows, measured sightlines. He spent a full 3 minutes in my bedroom, stood at the foot of the bed where I slept every night. Then he spoke into his phone. Layouts clean. Basement entry, up the stairs. Bedrooms at the end of the hall on the right. 3 minutes in and out. I'll make it look real. The valuables are in the study. Easy to stage. He paused, listening. Yeah, she said February if the other thing doesn't work. But between you and me, I think she wants it done sooner. She's getting nervous. At 8:12, Harlan exited through the basement window and walked back to his truck. At 8:14, Detective Langford's team moved. They stopped Harlan's truck at the end of the road. 2 units. Lights blazing. Harlan tried to run on foot and made it about 30 yards before an officer brought him down in the wet leaves. At 8:40, Andrea's phone rang. She was sitting at the book club dinner with 5 other women, a glass of Pinot Noir in her hand. It was Tyler. Mom, something's wrong. There are police cars at the house. At 9:05, Andrea pulled into the driveway. She saw 4 sheriff's vehicles, lights spinning. She saw Detective Langford standing on the porch. She saw Ray Alcott. And then she saw me. I was standing in the doorway of my own home. The home she'd planned to take from me. The home where she'd measured out poison every morning and handed it to me with a smile and a glass of orange juice. Her face went through 3 stages in about 2 seconds. Shock. Her mouth opened. Her eyes went wide. Then, calculation. I could see her mind racing, assembling a story, looking for the exit. Then fear. Real, deep, animal fear. Because she understood in that moment that she was caught, and there was no version of a story that would save her. Jim, she said. What's happening? Why are the police here? Are you okay? I didn't answer. Langford stepped forward. Andrea Brennan? I'm Detective Paul Langford with the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder by poisoning, insurance fraud, grand theft, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent. She didn't remain silent. She screamed. She cried. She said it was a misunderstanding, that she loved me, that someone was framing her. She said Tyler's name over and over, like an incantation. Then they put her in the back of the cruiser, and she went quiet. Looked straight ahead. Blank. Tyler was arrested at his apartment in Greenville 40 minutes later. He was on the phone with Megan when officers knocked. He tried to flush his phone down the toilet. It didn't flush. Over the following weeks, the case expanded. Langford brought in the State Bureau of Investigation. Dana Torres's research on Gerald Sutton and Douglas Pryor led to inquiries in Georgia and South Carolina. Patricia Sutton, Gerald's daughter, provided old medical records and pharmacy receipts that suggested a pattern identical to what Andrea had been doing to me. Harlan made a deal within 72 hours, full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence. He told investigators everything. How Andrea had found him through Tyler's girlfriend Megan's cousin, a man Harlan had served time with. How she'd paid him $15,000 up front with another $25,000 promised after my death. How she described me as a lonely old man with too much money and not enough sense. He said it casually, like he was describing a plumbing job. Tyler broke next. 2 weeks in county lockup and the reality of spending his life in prison cracked his composure like an egg. He gave a full statement, detailed how his mother had trained him since he was 17, how she'd identified targets at charity events, church groups, community centers, how she always looked for the same profile: widowed, wealthy, isolated, grieving. How Gerald had been there first. Tyler was 19 then, barely involved, just the quiet son in the background, making the target feel comfortable. Douglas was the second. Tyler had played a bigger role, helping his mother set up the finances, opening accounts. By the time they found me, Tyler was a full partner. He described his mother without emotion. "She told me it was us against the world," he said in his statement. "She said rich men like them had more money than they deserved, and we were just evening the score." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. I read that statement in Langford's office, sat in a plastic chair under fluorescent lights, and read the words of a 23-year-old man who'd helped plan my death and felt nothing but mild inconvenience about it. The trial came 6 months later. The courtroom in Asheville was standing room only. Ray testified. Dana testified. Patricia Sutton flew in from Georgia, still raw with grief, still angry. The pharmacologist from the crime lab explained in precise, devastating detail how the compound in the supplements would have killed me within another 4 to 6 months. They played Bobby's video. My brother's face, wasted by cancer, filled the courtroom screen. His voice, steady and clear, laid out everything he'd done to save me. I watched the jury watch him. Several of them were crying. The judge removed her glasses and looked down at her desk. The prosecution played the recordings. Tyler and Megan talking about the old man. Andrea in my kitchen discussing dosages and timelines. Andrea and Tyler planning the staged burglary. Harlan, in my bedroom, measuring the distance from the door to the bed. Andrea's defense attorney tried to argue that Bobby was delusional, that Ray had been overzealous, that the recordings were taken out of context. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on every count. Andrea stood perfectly still when the verdict was read. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She looked at me across the courtroom with an expression I'd never seen on her face before, though I suspect it was the only real expression she'd ever shown me. It was contempt, pure, undiluted contempt for the man who'd been too stupid to die on schedule. Tyler sobbed through the sentencing. 22 years. He kept looking at his mother, waiting for her to say something, to comfort him, to acknowledge him. She never turned her head. Not once. The judge gave Andrea life without the possibility of parole. Harlan received 18 years as part of his cooperation agreement. After the trial, I drove to Charlotte, to Bobby's grave at Elmwood Cemetery. It was September again, a year since he'd died. The headstone was simple, exactly what he'd wanted. Robert James Hayes, beloved husband, father, brother, 1956, 2025. I sat on the ground next to the stone for a long time. The groundskeeper probably thought I was crazy, an old man sitting in the grass talking to granite. "You always did have to be right about everything," I said. "Remember when you told me not to bid on the Morrison Tower job? I didn't listen. We almost went bankrupt. Remember when you told me Diane's car needed new brakes? I said it could wait another month. She slid through a stop sign the next week. You were always right, Bobby. And the one time it mattered most, the one time everything was on the line, you spent your last good days making sure I'd listen. I put my hand on the stone. It was warm from the afternoon sun. I miss you, brother. Every single day. I sold the house in Asheville. Couldn't walk through those rooms anymore. Every doorway, every corner, every inch of counter where she'd stood mixing poison into my pill organizer. I bought a cabin outside of Brevard. Smaller, simpler. Jake recommended a security company and I let them do whatever they wanted. Cameras, sensors, reinforced doors. I didn't care about the cost. I cared about sleeping through the night without checking the locks 4 times. My daughter Sarah came down from Knoxville with her husband and my 3 grandkids. They stayed for 2 weeks. We hiked. We fished. We sat on the porch and watched the sunset and ate too much barbecue. One evening, Sarah found me on the porch alone, staring at nothing. "Dad," she said carefully, "are you okay?" "I'm angry," I told her. "Not at Andrea. I'm angry at myself. I was so desperate not to be alone that I let a predator into my life. I ignored every warning sign. Bobby saw it. Ray suspected it. Even your mother, when she was alive, always said I trusted people too easily." Sarah sat next to me. "You're not stupid, Dad. You were grieving. She targeted you specifically because you're the kind of man who sees good in people. That's not a flaw. She just weaponized it." That conversation changed something in me. The anger didn't disappear, but it shifted. It became fuel. I used the money Andrea had stolen, every penny recovered through the investigation, plus a significant portion of my own savings, to establish the Robert Hayes Foundation. We partnered with the Buncombe County DA's office and 3 other district attorneys across the Carolinas to create a task force focused on financial exploitation of older adults, romantic predators, caretaker fraud, inheritance schemes, the quiet crimes that nobody talks about because the victims are too ashamed to come forward. In the first year, we helped 47 people. A 70-year-old widow in Raleigh whose new boyfriend had been draining her retirement account. A 68-year-old man in Spartanburg whose live-in caretaker had forged power of attorney documents. A retired teacher in Wilmington whose own nephew had been selling her jewelry and furniture while she was in assisted living. Every case made me think of Bobby. Every family we helped felt like a promise kept. Ray Alcott joined the foundation's board. He was 73 and showed no signs of slowing down. Dana Torres became our lead investigator. Patricia Sutton, Gerald's daughter, started a support group in Georgia for families of financial exploitation victims. She called me once a month, usually on Sundays. We didn't talk about Andrea. We talked about moving forward. 18 months after the trial, Langford called me. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation formally reopened the Gerald Sutton case. They're building a murder charge against Andrea based on evidence from our case and new forensic analysis. South Carolina is looking at the prior case, too. If they get convictions, she'll have life sentences stacked 3 states high. "Good," I said. "And Tyler contacted us from prison. Wants to cooperate fully on both cases. Says he'll testify against his mother." "Let him," I said. "Let him spend the rest of his life explaining what he helped her do. I'm 66 now. I live alone in the cabin outside Brevard. I've got good locks, a retired FBI agent on speed dial, and a dog named Scout who weighs 90 pounds and sleeps at the foot of my bed. I run the foundation 3 days a week. I drive to Knoxville once a month to see Sarah and the grandkids. I visit Bobby's grave when I need to think. I'm not the same man I was 3 years ago. I'm more careful, more watchful. Some people would say more suspicious, and I prefer the word aware. I know now that predators don't look like predators. They look like comfort. They look like the answer to loneliness. They look like a warm smile at a charity gala and a hand on your arm and someone who remembers your grandchildren's names. But I also know something else. I know that real love, The kind that doesn't come with conditions or agendas or exit strategies, does exist. Bobby proved it. He proved it every weekend he drove 3 hours to sit with me after Diane died. He proved it every time he said I'm not sure about her and I refused to listen. He proved it when he was dying, when every breath was borrowed time, and he chose to spend those breaths protecting me instead of resting. I keep the USB drive in the top drawer of my desk. Sometimes, late at night, when the cabin is quiet and Scout is snoring and the mountains are just dark shapes against a darker sky, I plug it in and watch the end of Bobby's video. Not the warnings, not the evidence, the part that comes after. Bobby's face, exhausted but almost peaceful. A thin smile. "Jimmy," he says, "we had one hell of a ride, didn't we? 2 kids from Pittsburgh who didn't know anything about anything. Built a company out of nothing. Raised our families. Got old. I mean, look at us. We're old men, Jim. When did that happen?" He laughs, and the laugh becomes a cough, and the cough takes a long time to pass. "Listen," he says when he can breathe again. "I know I'm asking a lot. I know this is going to turn your world inside out. But you're tougher than you think. You always were. You just needed someone to remind you. So here I am, reminding you one last time." His eyes are wet. His voice cracks but holds. "You're my brother, Jimmy. Not by blood, by something stronger. By every job we worked, every argument we had, every time we showed up for each other when showing up was hard. 47 years. I wouldn't trade a single day." He straightens up, squares his shoulders despite the pain, and then he does it. The salute. The old Army salute, crisp and precise. The one we learned at Fort Bragg when we were 19 years old, and the world was ahead of us. "Now go live, little brother." That's an order. The screen goes black. I close the laptop. I sit in the dark. Scout shifts at my feet. Somewhere outside, an owl calls from the ridge. I kept the order. I lived. And every person the Foundation helps, every scheme we uncover, every frightened widow or lonely widower we pull back from the edge, that's Bobby's hand reaching out one more time. That's my brother still showing up, still protecting, still refusing to let the people he loves face the darkness alone. Because that's what brothers do. Not by blood, by choice. And the choice, as Bobby always said, is what makes it unbreakable. I intend to keep proving him right for as long as I draw breath.